Imagine a world on the brink of war. The political landscape has already been shaken by trade tensions, military confrontations, and economic strife. But now the unthinkable happens. Russia, under the leadership of Vladimir Putin, launches an unprovoked attack, escalating tensions into full-scale war. But this is not a traditional conflict. This time, the catalyst for Russia's aggression isn't just soldiers on the ground or missiles in the sky. It's an unexpected and deeply concealed fleet of ghost tankers vessels that operate in the shadows beyond the reach of international laws and regulations. These ghost tankers are untraceable. They exist in the gray area of maritime trade, operating outside the normal radar of shipping lanes and often beyond the reach of international sanctions. They're not simply cargo ships. They're vessels of power smuggling oil, gas, and weapons to bypass international sanctions, feeding into the covert activities of global superpowers. Russia, a country with vast oil resources and economic leverage, has used these ghost tankers to fuel its operations, ensuring that its economy stays afloat despite the growing isolation on the world stage. And then the unthinkable happens. In a series of highly coordinated actions, the United States Navy, using cutting-edge intelligence technology, uncovers the true scale of the ghost tanker operation. Through satellite surveillance, intercepted communications, and covert reconnaissance, the U.S. begins to piece together a network of over 100 unmarked vessels crisscrossing international waters. Their origins obscured, their destinations hidden in plain sight. These ghost tankers aren't just carrying illicit cargo. They're vital to Russia's clandestine operations, and without them, the Kremlin's entire strategy for global influence begins to unravel. The decision is made. Under cover of darkness, the U.S. Navy moves with military precision. A fleet of warships specially equipped with the latest maritime technology moves in surrounding the ghost tankers that are positioned in key choke points along global trade routes. These ships, without any means of defending themselves, are quickly boarded and impounded. Within hours, the entire fleet of ghost tankers is neutralized, their illicit cargo seized, and their operations dismantled. The operation is swift, silent, and devastating. No shots are fired, but the consequences are immense. This is a direct blow to Russia's hidden economic lifeline, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Putin, furious and humiliated, is pushed into a corner. His empire, built on the power of oil and the ability to circumvent sanctions, has just been stripped of one of its most crucial assets. In an emergency session with his military and intelligence chiefs, Putin delivers a message that will send shockwaves through the world. The U.S. has not just attacked Russian interests, it has triggered a direct act of war. The stakes are raised almost immediately. Russia, already emboldened by its military prowess and nuclear arsenal, begins mobilizing its forces. But the world is watching closely, and the U.S. isn't just waiting for retaliation. The U.S. Navy, having neutralized the ghost tankers, begins a series of strategic defensive operations. Cyber defense systems are strengthened and satellite communications are bolstered. But Russia, a nation known for its advanced cyber capabilities, strikes first. Within hours, key infrastructure across the U.S. begins to crumble. Power grids go down, stock markets crash. The internet is flooded with misinformation campaigns aimed at destabilizing the nation's confidence. Russia's cyber warriors begin to wreak havoc on American society, creating chaos in the hopes of undermining the political and economic systems that sustain it. The U.S. retaliates in kind, launching its own cyber counterattacks on Russia's vital infrastructure, paralyzing its military systems, communications, and economy. But this is no longer just a cyber war. This is the beginning of a new era of geopolitical conflict. The ghost tankers weren't just a strategic asset to Russia, they were a symbol of its power. And without them, Putin's Russia begins to implode. Oil prices skyrocket globally as Russia's ability to supply energy to key markets dries up. The global shipping industry, heavily reliant on these untraceable tankers, begins to experience massive disruptions. Ports around the world are thrown into chaos as countries scramble to assess the impact of the impounded fleet on their own economies. But Russia won't back down. As sanctions tighten and the economy reels, Putin ramps up his rhetoric. His government begins to openly challenge the West, calling for an alliance with countries like Iran, North Korea, and even China, all of whom are eager to exploit the situation. The prospect of a larger regional conflict becomes all too real as these nations rally behind Russia, preparing to face off against NATO and the United States. While the world braces for war, military analysts scramble to predict what happens next. Would Russia resort to direct military confrontation with NATO forces in Europe? Or would they continue to use cyber warfare and economic leverage to weaken the West from within? No one knows for sure. But what is certain is that the entire balance of power has shifted. The impoundment of the ghost tanker fleet was a decisive move in a larger game of chess, a move that could ignite a world war, or perhaps reshape global politics in ways that haven't been seen since the Cold War. The consequences of this event ripple outward. Europe, already on edge with rising tensions between Russia and NATO, begins to fortify its borders. Major cities like London, Berlin, and Paris brace for the worst. Cyber attacks become the new normal as governments around the world scramble to safeguard their infrastructure from foreign influence. Economies around the globe suffer as sanctions tighten and the price of energy soars, and in Russia, the situation grows increasingly desperate. The Kremlin, unable to recover its hidden fleet, and now facing the consequences of its covert operations being exposed, turns to more extreme measures. Putin threatens nuclear escalation, knowing that the U.S. has a significant deterrent in place, but hoping to shake the resolve of his opponents. His words grow sharper, more violent. The possibility of a nuclear confrontation looms on the horizon. But what about the world's other superpowers? China watches carefully, its own position precarious. A rising economic powerhouse. It knows that the outcome of this conflict could influence its own rise on the global stage. China, with its own ambitions for dominance in the Pacific, considers how it can exploit the fractures between the West and Russia for its own advantage. As this geopolitical drama unfolds, the world is left with one pressing question. Can diplomacy still play a role in de-escalating this war, or has the power struggle gone too far with too much at stake for any side to back down? The ghost tankers may have been the spark, but the fire that follows could engulf the globe. Stay tuned, for this is only the beginning. The storm on the horizon is growing closer, and the question remains, who will emerge from the ashes of this conflict as the true victor?